Hello, I'm Malcolm.
And I'm Janice. What makes someone decide to write a show, then produce, then refurbish an old theatre, then film it and wait for the next chapter to unfold?
Well, let me tell you, Janice, that Chris and Lynn Dockrill did just that, and we meet them next on Our Time. 9 weeks.
What?
I've had this.
Oh, I know. It actually seems longer than that to me.
I am getting better.
Are you sure?
Yes. Every morning I have a voice then.
Are you taking your medication?
It's run out.
Oh.
I've done all that, and it's getting better, but it's just taking forever. And because right this moment I've been talking all day, and
yes.
So now we're recording the program. No, it's live. Look, it's lovely to meet this and our guests in this episode, Chris and Lynn, because they wrote a musical called The Island of Dr. Moreau.
Unusual.
It is.
Very unusual. Welcome to the program, both of you.
Thank you.
Obviously, Lynn is on that side and Chris is on this side, because Chris could be a girl.
It could be.
It could be.
And you could be a boy, Lynn.
This is right.
So, let's get past that.
Okay.
Just start from the beginning. How long ago did you write this show?
Well, the original script I wrote back in 1998 as a high school musical. I was the English and drama teacher.
That title's been used by somebody else.
Yes, we steered away from that. We put it on at Kempsey High School, which is a comprehensive rural high school in New South Wales. And we ran for 5 shows and we had about 2,000 people come to see it in a small town.
Right.
And most of the people who returned were adults, and they saw it up to 4 times in 5 days.
Good heavens.
And I knew the show had incredibly positive commercial legs.
So you wrote the book for the show?
I wrote the script, yes.
And Lynn?
I wrote the music.
Because?
Yes. Well, I am a musician, but I also am a teacher, or was a teacher. I've since retired from that life as a school principal.
What, to become a moron?
To become, yes, one of the moronettes, maybe.
Moron crew.
But no, I've been performing music my whole life. It's just one of my passions. And Chris would come to me with pretty wild lyrics and say, put some music to it, and that's what I did. So.
Well, before we go back to the beginning, let's have a look at one of the songs from the show, and we'll explain how you got this as well.
Sure, great.
So this first one is, what's it called?
This is called It Ain't Easy Being a Voodoo Queen.
It ain't, no, it ain't easy at all. If you think being me is easy, you don't know what you mean. I tell you, babe, it's no sure bet being a voodoo queen. It ain't easy, baby. No, it ain't easy. No, it ain't easy, baby. Being a voodoo queen. I gotta dress my head in feathers and paint my face all blue, roll my eyes and lick my lips. It's hard, I'm telling you. Oh, it ain't easy, baby. No, it ain't easy. No, it ain't easy, baby. Being a voodoo queen. Well, you might slide it down.
So it's very clear it's not Sound of Music.
It's very far from Sound of Music.
Now, a lot of people think, how do you describe something like this to somebody who hasn't seen it, but maybe has seen something similar? And I read about this, people were saying, oh, it's like an Australian version of Rocky Horror.
Well, yes, we've been tagged that way quite a few times.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, it's good in that we're being compared to something that has
So
such a long
successful.
life,
Yeah.
and we hope that this will have a similar cult following across the world. But we are at pains to stress that there is nothing in the plot of this show that resembles Rocky, but
No transvestites
no,
from Transylvania?
no. There's a fairly high camp slave market junkie, but that's about it. But if I like to say that if Rocky Horror established a jump to the left genre,
Yes,
then we are unashamedly in it.
yes.
But we're in it for another generation.
But interestingly enough, in Book of Mormon, there's a similar sort of jump to the left in the storyline of that. But look, let's go back to the beginning of this. So you did this, you mounted this production, then you thought, what?
Well, we knew it had commercial legs. It's one of 5 shows that Lynn and I have actually written, but both of us loved our teaching. And I just put it on hold. I continued to write other plays and things like that, but I waited until I retired from teaching, and I refined the script and aimed it at a more generic audience. And when I say that, our audience so far, our demographic is 5 to 96 years old. And so as soon as I retired, I jumped straight into then launching the project. And
where were you living then?
Crescent Head, little village, famous for its surfing on the east coast of Australia between Sydney and Brisbane. When we eventually leased the theatre, which we'll probably come to, then I moved to Sydney and basically lived there for about 8 months. Yeah.
Well, that was the next question. What makes you suddenly decide, let's find a theatre in the middle of Sydney and put on a show?
But it wasn't just any theatre, it needed a lot of work.
Oh, yes, it was a shell.
It was a shell.
A lot of your viewers will know it as the old Palace Academy Twin Cinema. Before that, it was called the Mandala. And
before that?
Well, way before that,
yes.
Originally it was called West's Olympia Theatre.
Yes, and held 2,500 people.
Yes,
so it wasn't small.
It was one of the 2 biggest live theatres in Sydney. And I think there are still rooms in that building that we haven't been in. Is that right, Lynn?
There definitely are.
We originally did our budgets on renting just a theatre space. And we were looking at the Carriage Works at the time, because the Carriage Works were offering space to people outside their organisation. That's changed now. But then the opportunity came up. Our son's in entertainment, and he said, "Dad, there's this building, you and Mum are going to love it." So it's owned by the Greek Orthodox community. We were lucky we had contacts in that community, and it had been locked up for 4.5 years.
Gosh.
Just empty.
God.
And I say to
I bet
people,
it wasn't empty. I bet there were a few things crawling around
it was like a mausoleum in that every flat surface was like someone had sprinkled talcum powder over it. Wasn't it? The
It's
dust
called
was
putting
so
it in mothballs.
Yeah, that's right. And it was empty. It was literally empty. The Palace Group took everything, seats, everything. So it was literally a shell. What we loved, though, was it was a twin cinema, and we looked at we had to rent the whole lot, but we looked at the larger of the 2, and the acoustics in that place, like Lynn fell in love straight away. I mean,
did you stand somewhere and sing?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely, I did.
Comes back
yeah,
to
it does. That's right.
And like it's
it was
built like
important.
it has been built like the old cinemas, where the sound, the acoustics are so important. And we thought, this is just too good to pass up. So we built a 2-story stage, which you might have seen, I think, on there. We imported 260 brand new theatre chairs and had them installed. We bought a massive lighting grid because we didn't want to actually cut into the ceiling or anything. We didn't want to destroy the building, so we had a freestanding massive lighting grid. Yes, but the theatre, it cost us a bit of money, but...
And how long did it take to do all that?
Months, perhaps 3 months.
That's not very long.
No,
3 months.
we had a
Did you
lot.
keep the books?
No, I was too busy running a school at that point of time.
You were a
headmistress? I was, that's right. I'm principal of was a principal of a primary school, very big primary school. So although I was able to get down there for the holidays and to do auditions online, I did auditions. They would send me the video of the poor person auditioning so I could say yay or nay. I would fly down Friday night to Sydney and then fly back Sunday night so I could do a whole week of work again. Yeah, busy times.
But we were also flying in our lead guitarist from Melbourne.
Yes.
We were, did not compromise on who we wanted.
No.
And
See, I
Worth
think
it all. Worth it all.
why it's really worthwhile talking to people like you is, I think in this country we don't have enough people who do exactly what you do. You have a dream, a goal, you write something and you put it on.
That's it.
You don't ask for government subsidies.
That's right.
You're just putting it on. If the public like it, you're successful. If they don't,
That's right.
Try
That's
again.
it.
And Sydney,
to school.
Sydney's,
It's
as you
tough.
would know, Sydney is probably the toughest city in Australia to launch a new musical.
but probably the only one you can. Just
yes.
hold that thought and we'll be back in a tick and talk more about the island of Dr. Moreau. And welcome back.
Yes. Look, with the success that you've had, so where did you go from there? So you had a season in Sydney at this theatre, and then what happened after that?
Well, first of all, were the critics kind?
Yeah.
Well, eventually they were. It was interesting. We received one negative review before our show even opened.
Oh, that's
And yeah, that was
And
really
how
handy.
did they exactly come to that decision?
Well, our public relations team said, look, this guy from the Herald, he can't get to your opening night. Can he come and have a look at a rehearsal? And I said, look, we're actually working out some major problems. He can come on the understanding, no review of this. So the review came out. It actually came out 3 days before the first paying customer saw the show. The show he saw was 22 minutes longer than the show that opened less than a week later. So it was unkind. Giles Hardy, who was the film reviewer for the ABC, actually said in an interview, he thought that the person who saw that wrote that review didn't even understand what he was looking at. Because he said, and you talk about the Sound of Music, that's what we were running against in Sydney at the time.
Oh, really?
Yes, we were.
So over here is your traditional John Frost mega production type show.
Yes.
And here we are on Oxford Street doing the impossible. I mean, industry people could not understand how the hell we did it.
Wow.
But we did it. We ran for 4 weeks. We originally wanted to run for 3. But because we owned the space and our cast had that wriggle room, we contracted them until the end of the lease. So we ran for 4 weeks. We started as an unknown in week 1. I literally could not get a seat in my own theatre on the last night. I sat on a little stool next to the lighting guy, and it was packed. Jack Thompson, our patron, he came that night.
I've got to say, we'll put the address for the link on the screen here, but if you Google Island of Dr. Moreau, you'll find it. And who should be first on the clip about the show but Jack Thompson saying, you must see the show. I thought, must be his brother.
Well, Jack turned up. Jack is a very good friend of a very good friend. And our friend, this other friend, Jean-Paul Bell, he said, you should go along and have a look at this. Jack said, I'm sitting there in the front row one day and Jack comes in in his civvy clothes and his old jacket that he wears everywhere. And Voodoo Valma was singing that song that we've just played. He got out his iPhone and started to record it. And at the end of the song, he looked at me, he said, this is amazing. And ever since then, he's just been the kindest supporter. There's no money changed hands. He's just supported us all the way through.
Well, because, like I said before, there just aren't enough people taking these risks. But we know what the risks are. Janice and I both do, because we've done similar things in our life. And you know that, you've written something, you put the whole thing together, you rehearse for ages, and you just hope to God that people are going to come and see it.
Yeah.
That's right.
You know?
And they did. They did. And it was word of mouth. And we had, well, there was a couple of people who came up and boasted to us, this is our 7th time at your show in 4 weeks. And they go away, like people would go away and then bring back their friends.
Yeah.
And it would just grow like that. Which
Well, and it's not a small
it's
cast,
wonderful.
and you've got a couple of short guys in it, or dwarfs in it.
Yep.
It's like, where do you find them? You've got this tall guy playing...
Brother
the
Bob.
doctor. Oh, the brother, yes.
Yes.
Who's the doctor?
His name's James Berkeley. We
But who
applauded
is the doctor in the show?
Dr. Moron.
Yes, but who is he?
Yeah, his name is James Berkeley.
No, but who is he in the story?
story.
Is
Oh, well, he's
doctor-
the central character, obviously.
Okay.
Is that?
No.
No, that's not the answer you want.
No, it's the story, I suppose. I want to know how Dr. Moron got to be Dr. Moron.
That's a good question, and we never really know. But he
never really know.
he insists on being called Dr. Morone, even though it's spelled M-O-R-O-N, but it's Morone. Everyone else on the island calls him Moron. Yeah.
But I guess maybe you were referring to Dr. Moreau, the H.G. Wells story.
Well, I know. And everyone probably by now will have twigged
Yes.
the names are parallel, let's say.
Perhaps Chris can answer that. He's the writer.
It's not really a it's not really a spoof.
Oh, excuse me, I'll just pass.
Pass it, pass it.
Absolutely, I will.
It's not really a spoof on Dr. Moreau, and in fact, the only inspiration I got from Wells's novel, classic novel, was the idea of mutated beings dancing on stage.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, and so Dr. Moron's whole aim in life is to mutate people, humans, into animals to bring out their base passions, and so there's a song and a song and dance in the second act called Genetic Mutation, where you see these mutated beings in rags dancing all over the stage, and that indirectly was the inspiration from the island of Dr. Moreau.
Right.
And one of the characters, actually, who's one of the supporters of Dr. Moron, says, there was another doctor once, silly man. He wanted to turn animals into humans. He got it all wrong. Yeah.
Well, let's look at another clip from the show.
Doctor told me lady to live a clean life, stay away from trouble, stay away from strife. Doctor told me good, doctor told me strong, listen to his orders and I can't go wrong. I'm under doctor's orders, I'm under doctor's orders, yeah, I'm under doctor's orders. I'm under doctor's orders just to stay away from you. Doctor told me straight not to get myself mad. Doctor said it wasn't part of his strategic plan. Doctor told me that I must stay loyal and true. The doctor told me straight I must stay away from you. I'm under doctor's orders. I'm under doctor's orders. Yeah, I'm under doctor's orders. I'm under doctor's orders just to stay away from you. I'm under doctor's orders. I'm under doctor's orders. I'm under doctor's orders. I'm under doctor's orders just to stay away from you.
So there's lots of colour and movement, you might say.
Lots of colour and movement. Yeah.
While that clip was happening, you were just saying a little bit about the story behind that clip.
Yes, well, the blonde lady who's singing, her name's Edwina, and
I thought it was Lynn.
the fellow in the white overalls is Dougie. Edwina and Dougie have been washed ashore. They're stranded, shipwrecked. They are captured by Voodoo Valma, who we saw earlier. And Valma, at first she thinks, oh, they'll make great sacrifice victims, so they get whacked in a cauldron. But then they get the idea that there's this mad doctor on the other side of the island who's always looking for experimental subjects. And so they think, a slave market auction, we'll auction them off to him. And so then that
Whole
clip
routine.
that we just saw then is just after Dr. Moron has bought them, and he's drugged and hypnotised Eddie, or Edwina, and told her to stay away from every other man.
Lynn, can I just ask you a very personal question?
Absolutely.
How have you managed to stay with this man, with this
I
warped
know.
imagination?
I look, after 40-odd years, I'm quite used to it. Because he does actually write some serious things. But you see, the music is what it's all about to me.
Of course.
And that's, to me, the very serious part of it. So, you know, I've always said to Chris, which he always finds a little bit amusing, that I'm not really interested in the lyrics. I listen to the music. You know, when we listen to an opera and they're singing in another language, we really don't know what they're saying unless they're singing about amour.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It's the beautiful tunes and the harmonies and so on that's happening. It's the same with me, with the music.
So really, you could just move on without him.
Absolutely.
No.
No. We're a good team.
Hey, look, I'm her Bernie Taupin.
Okay. Where are your glasses?
Okay.
So we're seeing this because you shot the whole show. Why did you do that?
Well, we always
from
want
having the
our plan has always been to go out into the world to look for major backers to produce this show internationally.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I knew we would always need an archival film for it. But the way things fell into place, by getting the access to the theatre, we controlled that space completely. So we effectively turned it into a film studio. And we could put cameras anywhere and everywhere we wanted. And so we filmed the show over 10 different nights, each night using 14 cameras per shoot. Some were handheld, some were fixed. And so we were able to go, oh, look, now we need to be up with the band tonight. We want to see what it looks like from the band. And the film puts you there.
Yes.
It puts you everywhere on stage. And as you could see, it's more than an archival film. It's actually a cinematic film. It took 10 months in the editing suite to produce that.
I can believe that. With that number of
Our
cameras.
chief editor, who came from South Australia originally, Paul Robert Burton, he did a brilliant job. I mean, it was an effort of love, really was, because the hours he put into it. And like he and I both, I said, yeah, he would respond to everything I wanted, and he just added some of his own magic.
Well, just hold that thought. We've got to take another break and we'll find out what the future of...
Dr. Moreau.
You say that so
Moreau.
well. So well. Back in a tick. We're back.
I know, we are back. So what we'd like to know now is, because you have that film, where do you expect to go from here?
Okay, very briefly.
Yeah.
As I say, it's a cinematic film. It is actually the first film of its type to have been produced in Australia. There's been lots of other archival films of musicals, but nothing like this. It already sits proudly in the National Film and Sound Archives of Australia.
Oh, great.
They jumped at it. But we've taken the film across 6 states, and last year we put our toe into the international market, and we were accepted by 13 film festivals, international film festivals, across 10 countries.
And you've got another
And
one?
we've got another one coming up. The only one we've entered this year is coming up in May at Rock Island, just south of Chicago. We'll probably do a couple of fundraisers to help some charities of people we know in America. But essentially, the film is our selling point. Lots of people could pitch an idea for a musical.
Yeah.
Our pitch goes like this. We'd like you to consider investing in the next live production, but before we talk about it, we will rent a cinema anywhere in the world for you. We will fly to you, and you must see the show on a huge screen with surround sound, and then we'll talk about the potential of it. Because there's so much spin in the entertainment industry. We're not talking spin, we're talking reality.
But it's really hard to get a new project like this off the ground to major players, isn't it? That's the issue.
And that's why we're going beyond Australia.
Look, it's been great to talk with you. The best of luck in every way possible
Absolutely.
with the show and the film.
you.
Good.
And we hope we can see your name on Broadway.
Yes.
But I prefer the
Thank
West
you.
End of London.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming in and talking to us. We
been a
wish you all the very best.
It's been a
you.
pleasure. Thank
That's
you.
Lynn and Chris Dockrill. And we'll see you soon, so keep yourself nice till then, Janice.
Bye for now.